how to write a simple but effective lesson plan. Now, lesson planning is a learned skill when you begin to homeschool. And I even have had some homeschoolers ask me, and I did the same thing, why do I need a lesson plan when I'm using a curriculum that just lays it all out? I just follow what the next plan says to do or what the next lesson says to do, right? Okay, well, I have some tips to share with you. But first, let me tell you who I am. I'm Tina Robertson. I've been homeschooling 25 years. I have 3 homeschool grads. I'm still mentoring a homeschooler right now. His name is Mr. Munchkin. He's in kindergarten and first grade, and I'm having so much fun in these younger grades. I have helped hundreds and hundreds of new homeschoolers get on the road to homeschool through my workshops that I did in person in Texas. Now I've brought that workshop online, and I have courses online to help homeschoolers. And I think I explained that my website was Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus, and my Facebook page is How to Homeschool Easy. I've created lap books, unit studies, a do-it-yourself planner. That's enough. I'm excited to be here and talk to you. This is my favorite way to interact with you, by video. And so if you want to tell me where you're from, please do. I'd love to tell you hi. I'm from Texas. That's where I've been. I've been around different places. Actually, we had moved for a while to South America so that we could enjoy the Amazon rainforest. It was a dream. I never thought we would be able to do that. And then we came back here to Texas because we are caring for parents. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. But today I want to talk about effective homeschool lesson plans. And one thing not about me is that I do not have a public school teacher background. I do not bring that with me to help other homeschoolers. Everything I've learned has been on the job, helping other new homeschoolers through the 10 years that I had an in-person workshop, and then of course through the years helping them online and through my personal coaching. So I bring a very different skill set, and no, I don't bring a public school teacher experience with me. I don't need that. I can think out of the box. I know sometimes it's hard when you have the public school teacher background, that you have standards, and I have many of them in my classes that do my workshops, and I just always love them in my class, and they all seem to say the same thing. They kind of struggle with, this is the way they've been taught, this is the correct way we do this. And I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I love learning from them as well. But I'm going to show you my way. It's the easy way, and I'm going to explain why you lesson plan, and I'm going to explain why we don't have to lesson plan like a public school teacher. Okay, so first, yes, you do want to take advantage of a well thought out and organized lesson plan, because it can really mean the difference between a mediocre home educator and one that really soars and that is effective for their kids. So here's the first secret tip. Here's the first secret tip to how to really lesson plan. And that is, there's 2 parts. There's 2 ingredients to it. One part is journaling, which is done at the end of the day when you journal what your kids did. And the other part is what you do before you begin your day. Now, the way I learned this was when my kids were younger, I would just write down everything they did. Now, I did lesson plan for them, but I found out soon that I over planned because I didn't have any previous teaching experience. I hadn't taught grade pre-K 1, 2, 3, or 4 for 4 or 5 years. So I had over planned. So what I did was I reeled myself in and I journaled what we actually got done with my first child, my first homeschool kid, what we actually got done for the day and the week. And when I journaled at the end of the day, I had a better pulse on how long it actually took us to do these particular skills or activities for that particular age. And it just worked out so much better because then it helped me as I successfully journaled. Then I could plan the next week. So that's the first secret, that lesson planning, homeschool lesson planning, is part journaling at the end of the day when you first start, and then it's also planning before your day begins. Now, so what I had learned, like I explained when I started journaling, was I was doing the same thing over and over, which I was documenting what we had accomplished for the day. But you know, since I had overplanned, I had to have a way to rein myself in. So what I learned then, lesson planning, the second thing, lesson plans are just a visual map. They are a visual map. There's really not any right or wrong on lesson planning. I remember some teachers telling me, well, you have to look at the standards and you have to do this. Well, I'm not in public school. The reason I left public school because those aren't my standards. I don't want to follow standards. And here's the thing that I've learned in helping so many homeschoolers through the years is that as parents, we are very conscientious. These are our kids. We want them to succeed. We don't need a standard telling us this is where your kid needs to reach this milestone. As parents, we're tutoring them one-to-one daily. We want them to reach these milestones. We know what they're learning. We know what they're having a struggle with. So the point I'm making, there's really no right or wrong. Lesson planning should be a visual map for your child. And it helped me to know how to plan for the siblings that were coming up behind him, to see, okay, this is realistically what I got done in the day with this particular age. So I would write down the lesson plans, and here's the parts. Here are the basic parts to the lesson plan. There's 6 of them that I have down here. And these were the basics that I lesson plan and that I have on my 7-step homeschool planner, which is another video. I'll share those lesson planning pages with you. I'll share the visuals of those. Okay, so here's the basics to a lesson plan. Because first you need to know, what am I putting on this visual map? What are the pieces? What are the pieces that come together? So first, obviously, we have the subject. Okay, we have the subject. Then I would put the age or grade level that I'm writing this lesson plan for. Because remember, this is a map. We want to refer back to it, not just for the younger siblings, but also, is this child maturing? Is this child advancing in his knowledge? Is he gaining understanding? And I didn't know that if I'm planning a year and then I don't look, and when I look back, I see it's the same, he's at the same level. So that's why you want to put down the age and the grade that you're trying to teach, or the resource that you're using to teach. Okay, so in other words, it's not just for the other siblings, but it's also to be sure that the child you're teaching is making advancement, say 6 months, 3 months, another year from now. All right, the third component to an effective lesson plan then is the description or the explanation. This is where you put down your purpose and what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes if we just put down, learning the rainforest, that's not very specific. I would be very specific, and the points or the concepts, if there's 1, 2, or 3, I would describe them and explain what it is that I'm teaching. That also helped me for 3 months from now. When I look back, I could use that topic as a review in the natural conversation. I didn't need a worksheet. That was another beauty of the lesson planning, that I was journaling or mapping, that I could look back and we could just discuss it. Tell me what you learned about an animal cell. Tell me what you learned about the parts of a microscope. Do you remember? See, so the more specific you are about the concepts that you're teaching that day, the better. Okay, so the description and the explanation being specific. Okay, that's the third part. Now then, the fourth part is the process or the plan. Now, this is the part that's actually detailed. How will you know that your child knows this? What's the process? What's the plan? How will you accomplish this? Now, when I first started homeschooling, I didn't like myself because I wanted to use all worksheets. And I thought my kids would just love that. Of course, there's not any kid ever that loves worksheets. Okay, we do have some. I do have one like that. But they didn't remember anything. They weren't interested. And they certainly weren't interested in retaining anything. So the opposite side of me is the hands-on, the messy, and the lap books. So I stretched myself as a teacher and set a bar for my teaching that would include hands-on activities, lap books. I created numerous lap books on my website. I have a lot to say about lap books too, but they are a hands-on tool that they could each be about a specific subject. So it could be that through this lap book and the mini books and the pictures we put on it or things we would collect, we were studying about snakes, and they would collect snake skins and put them in little Ziploc bags and put them inside their lap book. And so these things make learning come alive. So what's the process? Is it just a natural conversation? Is it an app? Is it a book? Is it a play? Is it a video? Are they going to make a PowerPoint? Are they going to do notebooking? What way is this child going to illustrate that they got it, that they mastered it, or at least that they understood? If it was the first time introducing a subject, we're not working on mastery right then. I'm working on laying a foundation, especially if it's a harder subject. Here's the foundation. Is it a list of vocabulary words? What process are you going to use? And the fifth part to the lesson plan is supplies. I told you that there wasn't anything about a worksheet that was create excitement in my household in the beginning. I thought it would because I was a teacher. I was going to mark it with red. So then I realized the fifth component of my lesson plans was in the supplies. What do I actually need to make this happen? So I could look ahead, so I could plan, because there's nothing worse than starting a science experiment, and you know it, and not have that one item that you need in your house to do it. And then there goes the fizzle for the activity. So I would list the supplies that we needed. And again, if we'd done a science activity that was out of a laid out curriculum already, a box curriculum, I still listed the supplies we use, because if I do that again for another child or the next year and expand on that, I don't want to have to go back to find that curriculum. See, I probably got rid of it because I don't keep clutter. But my book, my lesson plan book, I keep. They are memory keepers. I can get rid of all the other clutter and keep my detailed lesson plan. Now, let me get sidetracked right here for just a second, but it's really important. I want you to know this, because I'm going to give you the sixth one here in just one second. But one thing about lesson planning and lesson journaling, because sometimes I get asked, when do you do all this? Well, I do it right when I'm sitting down with my kids. Right when I sit down with my kids, I do some lesson journaling when they need me and they'll need my help. I'm sitting down right with them. I do a little bit then, but I only plan for just the next week or 2 weeks. Okay? I do not plan for a whole year. I did that one time. Big mistake. About 2 weeks into the year, we were behind. Now, what I will do is make big sweeping goals. And because we did unit studies, I would plug in ideas, but we didn't go prep the unit studies until I knew my children were still interested in those subjects when we got to those months. Wasted energy. But I had a big plan, but the pulse of homeschooling, to keep a pulse on homeschooling, you don't want a lesson plan for a whole year. Your child may be ahead of grammar, 2 grade levels. My son went 1 year, and spelling. It would have been a waste of energy, stress. And it's not keeping a pulse if I'm trying to plan for a year. 2 weeks, I found, is the perfect balance. You don't get caught off guard, because sometimes something can happen that 1 week, and that next week rolls around, you don't have a plan. So I didn't do 1 week. 2 weeks was the perfect pulse that I found through my many years of homeschooling to plan detailed plans ahead. That way I could go ahead in math, we could go behind in grammar. I could look to see what was being the next lesson plan. If we didn't want to do that grammar and we wanted to do another one, we wanted to skip it, we would skip 2 or 3 pages. but 2 weeks was enough to keep the pulse on it. So that's one tip. I would sit down with them and write. A second tip when you do this lesson planning and journaling is that in public school, I realize this, there is a reason why the public school teachers, they come in before the kids get there. They have probably maybe 30 minutes, an hour, depending on when they show up, to get there, prep the room, and such as this. Well, before I sat down with my kids, I would get my coffee and sit down about 30 minutes while they were still finishing up their chores. That way I was ready to go. I had a couple of learners that were wiggly, that were not going to wait on me to say, what do we do now? I had to roll and I had to be quick. I had to roll right with it when they came. And a lot of times they would just stand at the table because they were all wiggly and wiggly. They're not that way now. They're very nice young men, adult men, very sweet, capable, intelligent, if I say so. But at the time, very wiggly. I just rolled with it. If they wanted to stand there and wiggle, that was fine. They could stand there and wiggle because that's what their body was telling them to do. But I had to be prepared. So for me to be prepared, I had to look at that lesson plan. I had to know at least what we were doing for that day. So if I had a short time, I focused just on that day, right now, that immediate moment. If I had a little bit longer time to plan, like maybe 45 minutes of uninterrupted time, minimal, depends if I had to tolerate my feet or if I had to get up or something else. 45 minutes, I'd look over the whole week. And then I'd start plugging in for the next week because I could tell the subjects that they were struggling on. Okay, so those are 2 tips to help you about when to do this lesson planning. No, I don't think you should take a whole day off and do it unless you want to. It's really not necessary. If you're sitting down with your kids, that's their time to study, that's your time to study, and that's your time to lesson plan. Plus, you can see what they're doing. I would just spread the books out. I'd get online. I'd do some of it. When they needed my help, I would stop, answer their question, and then just fill out my lesson plan and lesson journal right then. Okay, the 6th part then to the lesson plan is the assessment. Here I write what I felt my children learned, and if they explained it to me, what they liked, what they didn't like. This would help give me the advantage of being able to look back and see, okay, could I have done something differently? Because if we do this subject again, can I get better in the way I teach and present it until they get to that age where they're more independent? Could I be a better teacher? So this is where I said, okay, I struggled here, or they struggled with this concept. And sometimes if they just didn't get it, we just let it be, because sometimes you just need the information to go in and process a little bit, and everybody needs time to kind of mull over things, if you will. So I would do the same thing with my kids, but I would write down, or if it was really hit the point and it was really good, then I made those notes, because you think you'll remember them, but through the years, you do not remember them. I'm here to tell you, my lesson planning books have been like a journal, a diary, lesson planner, memory keeper, pictures, everything in it I can refer back to and see the milestones that my kids make. So, in other words, lesson planning doesn't have to be so detailed. You do not have to learn how a public school teacher does it. Those are the 6 components that have worked in all the lesson plans that I have ever done. And when I lesson plan, like I said, it's journaling at the end of the day, and it's also part planning, because if I want to skip those next lesson plans, and I think my kid has those, we're going to go from, you can still use something laid out. You can go from lesson 80 to 85, and then I would just write out whatever the 85 was. Also, as I homeschooled longer, I moved away from laid out curriculum and just made my own lesson plans just from a book. And of course, I did unit studies on those. I'll have a video for that too, about how to make lesson plans just straight from a book when you don't need any help. You're going to probably get to that point too, for sure, when you stay after it. But those 6 components, if you'll do that and just write and make your detailed lesson plans as you're sitting there, don't make it anything separate you have to do. Don't make it a big, complicated project. It's not. Just sit down there when your kids are doing it, fill in what you can, and only stay 2 weeks ahead, but keep those broad, sweeping goals and a framework of you, if you will, for those other topics and subjects that you may want to cover, because it could change. It could change by the time you get to those months. And like I said, children can go up, learning's like this, we're up, and then we're like, oh, then we're back. It's like an ebb and a flow. So you want to stay with them. You want to keep a pulse on what they're doing by not going too far ahead. So don't be intimidated by lesson planning. It really is just visual mapping. That's the best word I can think to describe it. It's a visual mapping. We don't have to do it like public school. Those 6 components will help you to write in your lesson planning journal what you want your kids to learn. And then I just love this quote by John Maxwell. He says, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine." And I agree 100%. Simple lesson plans have been life-saving for me. Not complicated, not overly organized, but a breath of fresh air so that I keep a pulse on what my kids are learning. I really enjoyed this time talking to you. If you have any questions, just post them below and let me know. And until next time, bye.